They say she was a whisper in the dark, a shadow at the edge of the candlelight. But what if I told you the bell which was not just a tale, told to frighten children in rural Tennessee? What if behind the legend lies a bloody truth, executions, disappearances, and an unofficial purge of so-called witches that history quietly buried? Before Salem, before Europe's fires died down, there was something far darker lurking in the American South, and it didn't just haunt a family, it hunted women. The bell witch executions, America's forgotten witch trials. It began as all these stories do, not with screams, but silence. The year was 1817. In the rolling hills of Adams, Tennessee, the Bell family, John, Lucy, and their children lived on a vast, fertile plot of land carved from the wilderness. A seemingly blessed life. Rich soil, strong sons, a daughter named Betsy, with hair like autumn leaves and a laugh that echoed through the trees. But the land, it was not empty. Locals whispered about the woods behind the Bell homestead. The Cherokee had warned settlers centuries before, do not break the soil here. The ground remembers. Still, John Bell did. And the land began to whisper. It started with tapping on windows at night. Then came the gnawing sounds from within the walls. Rats, they thought, until the voices began. At first, it was unintelligible, like wind muttering through a keyhole. But soon it grew bolder, louder, speaking names, calling for Betsy. And that's when people started to die. History teaches us about Salem. But the dark truth is that Salem wasn't the only witch trial in early America. It was just the one we documented. In rural communities like Adams, Tennessee, frontier justice was often administered in the dark, far from the eyes of history. Rumors of witches called haints or devil wives could lead to lynchings, drownings, or secret executions. The records were oral. The punishment, swift. And for women, accusation meant annihilation. Betsy Bell, just 12 years old, became the center of it all. She would wake with bruises, finger-shaped marks around her neck, and scratches down her back. The voices tormented her the most, chanting curses, threatening to burn her soul. When neighbors came to pray, the entity laughed at their psalms. Ministers left the Bell house pale and shaken, claiming they'd heard it speak in ancient tongues. Some claimed the ghost was a murdered woman seeking revenge. Others whispered it was the devil himself. But the truth may be far more terrifying. What if the Bell witch wasn't a ghost, but a victim? Her name was Mary Catherine Lewis, a widow who lived alone, not far from the Bell property. She was a healer, a midwife, a reader of signs and herbs. People called her the Green Lady because of the moss stains on her skirts and the dried bundles of plants in her hands. But when children fell sick and livestock died, guess who they blamed? Whispers began. Which devil consort she cursed Betsy? One night, in the dead of winter, a group of men went to her cabin. They claimed they were going to question her. She was never seen again. A month later, the Bell family said the spirit had quieted. For a time, the so-called witch returned, louder, more violent, but only toward Betsy. The girl was dragged from her bed at night, flung across rooms by invisible hands. Her screams could be heard from the edge of the woods. John Bell, her father, began to suffer seizures, his tongue swelling, face turning blue, lips foaming. Doctors found no cause. And then poison was found in his tea. He died within days. The official account said he was struck down by the witch, but others whispered something worse, that someone had administered the poison themselves and blamed the spirit. To this day, his death is the only one in U.S. history listed as caused by a supernatural entity. But what if the Bell witch was just a cover, a way to disguise a very real, very human revenge? And what if that revenge had to do with how many women were silenced under the guise of exorcism? In the decades following the Bell haunting, Adams became quieter, but the land didn't forget. Researchers in the 20th century began digging into land deeds, family records, and death registries. What they found was horrifying. Between 1817 and 1849, over 27 women from the surrounding areas were documented as having vanished without explanation. Most were unmarried. Some were widows. Others were midwives. A few had been accused casually, in passing, of unladylike behavior. They weren't tried. They weren't buried. They simply vanished. There is strong evidence to suggest a group of local men, church leaders, and self-styled exorcists formed a secret vigilante circle dedicated to cleansing the community. They called themselves the Keepers of Eden. Their mission: to remove temptation, to purify the land, to kill. If this story chills you, if it makes you question what you've been told about early America, then I ask you to subscribe to Torture History. Because these stories are real. These voices deserve to be heard. And we are only just beginning to uncover them. Like, comment, share. Let the forgotten be remembered. In a clearing just behind the old Bell property, there's a tree known to locals as the Widowmaker. It is crooked, misshapen, blackened by lightning strikes long ago. For years, people believed it was just a cursed place. Birds wouldn't nest there. Animals avoided it, but recently uncovered journals from a local preacher named Elias Stanton reveal a shocking truth. That tree was used to hang at least 9 women accused of witchcraft between 1820 and 1835. Their names are not in history books, because no one wrote them down, but their cries, Stanton wrote, echoed through the wood for days. He said he burned their bodies after death to cleanse the soil. The ash, he believed, would feed the land and keep the demon at bay. But the land was never cleansed. The nightmares continued. In 1831, deep inside the musty archives of a rural Tennessee courthouse, a record was found charred, partially eaten by time. It was a transcript, a secret trial. No judge, no jury. Just a panel of 5 men, landowners and clergymen, who convened in candlelit barns to accuse women of spiritual corruption. They called themselves the Covenant of Righteous Men. They wrote that the devil had taken root among the weak-willed and sexually impure, and it was their divine duty to excise the rot. The transcripts listed women as names. Their supposed crimes, such as talking back to husbands, practicing healing arts, or being seen walking alone at night, and the punishment. Each entry ended with the same chilling phrase: delivered to judgment. Rope and fire. One entry, undated, mentioned a young girl named Annalise Carter, just 15. Her crime: being seduced by spirits and casting spells on the preacher as son. She was never seen again. But not everyone remained silent. In 1842, Martha Allen, the mother of one of the missing girls, rode on horseback to Nashville to speak before a traveling judge. She brought with her blood-stained fabric, scorched earth samples, and the last note her daughter had written. It read, "They are coming at night. I am not a witch. I only love someone I was not supposed to." Martha was laughed out of the court, called hysterical, told to go home and tend to her grief in silence. She never returned. The next spring, her house was found burned to the ground. Her remains were never identified. But something survived. Her journal. Pages of names, symbols, descriptions of shadowy meetings held in barns, rites performed at crossroads, and most chilling of all, descriptions of how they marked the women before killing them. A brand in the shape of an open eye, burned into the back, so God would see their shame, they claimed. But maybe it was something else, a signal, a warning. In the woods behind the Bell property, just east of the Widowmaker tree, lies a ring of stones, moss-covered, half swallowed by the earth. Children were warned never to play there. For centuries, no one knew what it was, until in 1971, a group of amateur archaeologists uncovered bones beneath those stones. Female, burned, bound, 7 separate sets. Carbon dating placed them between 1820 and 1845. And at the center of the circle, embedded in blackened soil, they found an iron spike. Attached to it, a rusted chain and scraps of what appeared to be lace garments, the kind worn by young women in the 1800s. A makeshift execution ground. Unmarked. Unspoken. The story was buried. Authorities said it was a misinterpretation. But the town's silence spoke louder than any denial. Today, people still visit the Bell Witch Cave. They treat it like a ghost story and amusement. But the deeper you look, the less it feels like fantasy. Visitors report hearing women sobbing in the woods. They say they've felt hands grip their ankles beneath the earth. One woman claimed her back burned during a tour 3 days later. A blister formed in the shape of an open eye. But the truth, the real horror, it is not supernatural. It is historical. The Bell Witch was never just one woman. She was dozens, maybe hundreds. Her voice was a chorus of the silence bound together by pain, injustice, and erasure. Their cries became one. Their rage echoed as a legend. And we believed it was just a ghost. But it was never a ghost. It was the scream of women murdered under the name of righteousness. The roots of the Bell Witch legend run deeper than the soil of Adams. It was a system of patriarchal fear, religious extremism, and unchecked power. Ministers who feared educated women, husbands who feared independent daughters, communities that feared sexuality, emotion, and rebellion. And so they built a story, not of a girl tormented, but of a demon in a girl's skin. They created the witch not to explain the unexplained, but to justify the unforgivable. If you hear their stories, if you feel the weight of what was done, then you carry a piece of their truth. Subscribe to Torture History. Like, share, comment below. Tell us, have you heard the whispers in the woods? Because we may not finished. Not until every name is remembered. In 1849, the last documented witch execution occurred in secrecy. Her name was Tabitha Vaughn, age 21, a school teacher, accused of inciting rebellion through reading. Her final words, recorded by a farm boy who watched from the trees: "The darkness you claim is in me is yours, and it will swallow this town." Her body was never found, but the Bell Witch was never heard from again. Perhaps because the final voice had spoken, and the land, finally, had enough. You were told the Bell Witch was a ghost story, but ghosts only appear when something refuses to be forgotten. Behind the tale is a system of silence. A century of women punished for being too free, too bold, too loving. Mothers, healers, daughters. Their stories were buried. But the land did not forget. And neither should we. So when you hear creaks in the floorboards, when you hear a voice call your name in the woods, remember, she is not coming to haunt you. She is coming to be heard.